for the Tennessee Titans throughout the course of this draft process. I can see JR walking up here in just a second, so he'll sit down with us momentarily, and we'll be able to ask the GM all of these different questions. For me, though, I'm really interested to see how things are prioritized. Obviously, Mike Vrabel is going to meet with the media today as well. John's going to sit down with us before he does his press conference availability, and he's joining us right now as soon as Kirby Allen Kirby gets him the hookup. Nah, he's a pro. He's been here before. What's happening?
Afternoon. How are we?
We're doing okay.
Can you guys hear me?
We sure can. Can you hear you?
No, not. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Now we're hot.
Jon Robinson.
We're hot.
Here with us on 104.5 The Zone. It's great to be back at the Combine, John. This is the first time that the media vultures have been able to be back at this kind of thing. But how much different have the last 2 years been through the evaluation process for you now that we're starting to get things back to kind of normal?
Very different, and I would say this, a sense of normalcy has certainly returned. Being able to interact with the prospects through a couple different interview sessions, it's so much better than trying to talk to somebody over a computer. You can watch film, you can ask them tough questions as you're watching the film, like, well, what were you doing here? And because that's what we're trying to hire them to do, is to be football players. And
right.
You're getting to know them as people along the way throughout the course of conversation, but it's just, it's hard in that virtual world to read body language, to look at, are they looking down at the ground all the time when you're asking them tough questions? All of those little things that, they could be precursors to what the player may be about, but they've been good. We've had some really good interviews the last couple of days, and look forward to keep plowing away here.
Titans General Manager Jon Robinson here with us at the Combine on 104.5 The Zone. When you're breaking, and I know it's on an individual prospect basis when you're watching film with these guys and when you're asking them about certain plays or certain concepts, maybe your quarterback, how they read a defense or how they handle like drop eight or something like that, for example. When you're going through that process with them, how many –
Drop eight? You've been playing Madden?
No, we had people a lot smarter than me on here talking X's and O's. I try to sound smart about football every once in a while, John. I make you laugh with that one?
That was good, yeah. Almost as good as a player the other night. We were asking, like, what kind of coverage do you see mostly? He goes, we see that bump and run. And I'm like, I heard bump and run in like 12 years.
But, like, how does that – how many people – just for the audience who doesn't necessarily know how this thing works for you, how many people are in the room with you guys, with the prospects when you're going through these things?
Yeah, probably 10, 10 or 11. Scouts are in there. Obviously, Coach Vrabel, usually coordinators are in there. And we've got a format that we try to follow, but there's, some off schedule. Sometimes the player will say something and it'll spark a question, maybe in Vrabel's mind or in my mind. And, sometimes you'll throw them a little high heat and try to brush them back off the plate, see how they react to that. And, sometimes you'll throw them a softball and see if, do they swing and hit it or do they miss. But we've got a job for basically everybody in the room. You're observing body language. Our area scouts and our, guys that have been on the road, they know the background of these players from what, their contacts at their various schools. As you kind of talk through some of those things, you're seeing, all right, well, are they really being pretty forthcoming on some of that stuff, or are they trying to skirt around it? And I'd say for the most part, the guys we've talked to so far have been really good.
A consensus about this draft class, a lot of talent in the offensive and defensive line, the trenches specifically, but it seems like there's so much variance around the quarterback position. When there are years like that, I know the priority is good football players who are going to do everything they can to help the football team first and foremost. But when you're kind of looking at a draft like this where those positions are at a premium and given the protection was something of an issue last year, what do you kind of make of this offensive line class?
I think it's a pretty good class. Yeah, I think that there's some good players on the end of the line of scrimmage. Some good players kind of close to the interior of the point. Centers and guards. I think that's a good group. I think as a whole, it's a good group. I think you can find players really at different levels, but all players that I think can line up and play. Certainly guys that go in the top 5 theoretically should be somebody that better than somebody goes in the 4th round. But at the end of the day, who knows? It's all subjective, and it's all really dependent upon how much the player's willing to come in and work to maximize their skill set. But I think investing in the lines of scrimmage is important. I think you can never go wrong investing there because, as you said, that's such a premium, and that's really where the foundation of a football game it starts up there. If you don't protect and if you don't attack the other team's line, then it could be a long game for you.
Teams are built outside of just the first round, but obviously that's what a lot of football fans gravitate towards. For you guys, is it a necessity for your first-round pick to be able to provide you instant impact, or are you guys in a position as a roster to kind of slow play things a little bit in the cases of somebody like Jeff or Caleb last year?
Yeah, I think those two guys are good examples. I think that when when we selected Jeffrey, there was everybody kind of saw his talent, but there was a little bit of, well, you're not going to get the player, and I think we've certainly seen what he's capable of doing. Congrats to him on making the Pro Bowl this year. And Caleb, he came back off the his injury before the after the combine. Well, it wasn't a combine last year, but
yeah.
And then unfortunately got hurt in a game there in Nissan. So, but he's working hard. I think when you talk about that first round pick, ideally you would love for it to be clean.
Sure.
You'd love for it to come in and be a premium starter. And you never know in the first round where those guys come from. There's guys picked at the back of the first round that end up being, really, really good. DeAndre Hopkins was the back of the first round guy. And you got guys at the top of the round that don't do so good. So I think when we talk scouting terms, you've certainly got grade-wise guys that we think will come in and be, day one impact players. Those guys typically are gone before we pick because we typically pick at the back of the round.
Not a bad problem to have.
It's not a terrible problem. I'm not complaining. But then you've got guys that you're really looking at year two. All right, so once this guy comes in, he gets acclimated, this guy can start for us, and we think we can win football games with him.
Like we said, Titans general manager Jon Robinson here with us. Like we said, the priority is good football players. Is the quarterback position off the table this year, or is no position off the table?
No, I think we're always looking to add players to the team that we think, either from a developmental role can help the football team, from a depth role can help the football team. Logan's certainly he's improved. Ryan's has made a bunch of great throws for us.
Yeah.
He's played a lot of good football for us. Unfortunately, he had a bad game or two last year, and that sticks with you, especially when it's the last game of the year.
Recency bias is tough.
So and he knows he's got to be better, and I know he's going to work his tail off to be better and improve, just like all of our players are. But I think that position, you're always looking at that position because it's such an important position, maybe the most important position to the football team.
Over the course of your career here in Tennessee, now going into year 7, you have always rewarded guys when their second contracts are coming up who have been committed to the cause, who have been durable, and who have been productive, whether it's Lewan or Byard, Derek, Tannehill. Now you've kind of got a similar situation like that with Harold Landry. What's kind of the cost-benefit analysis of a player like Harold when you're looking at where you are financially against a player that's at a premium position and who has done just about everything humanly possible to live up to that expectation for you guys?
Yeah, Harold's done a great job. He's a guy that we thought a lot of when we traded up and took him. He's played a couple different spots for us. He's been productive year in and year out. Some years statistically, sack-wise, have been better than others. I certainly he played good for us. I think he benefited from some pieces that we had around him, and I think some of those pieces that we had around him benefited from him. That's football. That's a team. But we're working to try to keep Harold. We've had some discussions. We'll have another meeting this week, and then we'll talk after. And we've got a couple weeks here before the deadline, and when free agency starts. And we love Harold, and we want to try to keep Harold. But that balance of how far can you go is something that we have to be mindful of and we have to work through.
Titans general manager Jon Robinson, he's getting ready to meet with the media, but he decided to stop by here first. I thought we were going to outfit coordinate. I brought your jumpsuit.
Was it pink like yours?
Well, no,
I went Tangelo.
I went with it.
Is that a mob?
It said sand on the description. I brought you more a creamsicle colored one, so it's here. I'm going to be here.
It was really more like a medium rare salmon. Had old salmon tent.
That's what I asked for. Thanks, John.
Great seeing you guys.
Jon Robinson, there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Come back here in just a second. I'm Buck Reising, live from the Combine here in Indianapolis.